If you were to ask me what my favorite genre of video game is, I would say 3D platformer. Followed closely by puzzle games. And if there's one puzzle game that I personally think stands above all the rest as the quintessential game of the genre, it would be Tetris. Okay, I'll stop. You've all read the title of the video. You already know that I'm here to talk about the Portal games made by world-renowned game studio Valve. Portal is a duology that I hold very near and dear to my heart. Ever since I saw the ads for Portal 2 that showed Atlas and Peabody messing around with the portals, I was hooked! Watching them interact with the portals, sticking their arms through them, making infinite falls, flinging themselves around the facility, the concept of the portals themselves was so fascinating to me, and the way they were used in the trailer looked like so much fun! Eventually, I got the game for Christmas, and immediately started playing the co-op with my sister. I mean, come on, the co-op characters were what made me want the game. Of course I would start with the co-op. And yes, that also means that I played the second game before the first. I didn't completely know the story of the first game, all I knew was that it was a human versus an AI, and frankly, that was all the context I needed for the second game's single-player story. Anyway, personal backstory with the series aside, I was recently thinking, the Portal series is one of my favorite video game series of all time, and I have a YouTube channel where I talk about my opinions of video games. I should make a video talking about this amazing masterpiece of a duology! Portal as a franchise is such a fascinating success story. Valve, a company who primarily makes first-person shooters, tried their hands at a puzzle game? Say it ain't so! Well, it might not be as extreme as you might think. In 2007, Valve released the Orange Box, a game compilation that had 5 games on it, 2 old and 3 new. The old games were Half-Life 2 and Half-Life 2 Episode 1, and the new games were Half-Life 2 Episode 2, Team Fortress 2, and Portal. Valve originally intended Portal to be nothing more than the bonus 5th game of the bundle, clocking it at only a whopping 1 hour long if you're familiar with it, or 2 to 3 if you're not. After the package was released, however, Portal came to be known as the absolute highlight of the bundle, despite its short length. See, Portal actually wasn't that big of a difference from the rest of the games in the Orange Box. Portal is indeed a first-person shooter, but it's a really unique take on the genre. Unlike most of Valve's other games, which are all about using various types of guns to survive hordes of enemies, Portal doesn't have a single realistic gun in sight, or enemies that are actively seeking out and trying to kill you. Well, aside from the turrets. The gameplay of Portal is so simple, but so fascinatingly creative. Built on Valve's Source Engine and literally using Half-Life 2 as a base, it feels and plays exactly like most of Valve's other first-person adventures. The big runaway gimmick of Portal was none other than the Portal Gun, and its ability to create the titular portals. If you point the gun at any white surface and use the primary fire, a blue oval will appear on the surface. Then, if you point the gun at another white surface and use the secondary fire, an orange oval will appear on that second surface. The 2 ovals interconnect, and the portals will open. These portals are seamless gateways between the surfaces, and you as the player need to figure out how to use these portals to maneuver yourself and other objects around a course of puzzles built around the portal gun's abilities. You play as a woman named Chell. You've just woken up from suspended animation in the middle of some scientific testing facility, which you quickly learn is called Aperture Science. Your job, as explained by the AI known as GLaDOS, voiced by Ellen McLean, is to go through the course of puzzles she has laid out for you to test out the use of portals. The first portal opens, and you go on your merry way. This game is excellent at showing you the individual game mechanics. Every time a new mechanic is added, it shows you how to use it in a simple, typically single-room chamber, where it's not too hard to mess up. Then, once you get accustomed to that new mechanic, the next 2 or 3 chambers will expand upon it, before the next chamber introduces a new mechanic and the cycle repeats. For example, the first mechanic you're shown in the game is the ability to pick up cubes and place them on giant buttons. It starts you out in a room with literally nothing but a cube and a button, so it's pretty obvious what to do. Then there's a chamber where you need to go through portals to move the cube to the right place. Then there's a chamber where there's 2 cubes. Then, once you're fully accustomed to the use of cubes, the rest of the chambers continue to use them in tandem with the newer mechanics. Another example is the energy pellets. First chamber, you get a room with just the pellet and the receptacle it goes in. Second chamber, the pellet is at a different angle than the receptacle. Third chamber, there's a pool of acid you need to avoid while maneuvering the pellet through multiple portals. Heck, even the portal gun itself has this game design mentality. Chamber 2 is where you first get the portal gun, and when you do get it, you only have the ability to shoot the blue portals. Every chamber from 2 to 11 has the orange portal in a fixed position, and you need to only maneuver yourself and the blue portal to solve the puzzles. Then, once you've mastered the use of the blue portals, you get the dual portal device and now need to learn how to use both portals all on your own. All in all, Valve was great at designing this puzzle game. Each individual mechanic is taught to the player slowly before the later chambers expand upon them to a much more extreme extent. But that's just the gameplay aspect of this puzzle game. All is not as it seems in Aperture Science. As you explore the empty halls of Aperture Science's testing facilities, you might begin to question to yourself, what am I doing here? Where is everyone? Why is GLaDOS the only voice I hear? Who's running this facility? This is where Portal really starts to shine. It's world building. See, Portal is based on Half-Life, right? Well, that's more than just a game engine connection. Portal and Half-Life are actually based in the same universe, with Aperture Science being the biggest competitor to Black Mesa, which kind of makes Portal a pseudo spin-off to the Half-Life series. Black Mesa isn't the only scientific facility in the Valve universe that's had major facility-wide catastrophes. All throughout this game, it's hinted that you truly are alone. There's nobody watching you from the observation window seen all throughout the chambers, GLaDOS is the only character talking to you, and there are several places all around the chambers, most notably in Test Chamber 16, where you can find graffiti-covered ruins of the places where employees would walk, if they still existed. Something happened here, but you have no idea what. That is, until you get further into the game. There are a couple times throughout the game where GLaDOS promises Chell some cake for completing the course.
The Enrichment Center is committed to the well-being of all participants. Cake and brief counseling will be available at the conclusion of the test.
If you stumble upon some of the hidden ruins, you'll most likely find the phrase, "the cake is a lie," amongst the graffiti, implying that GLaDOS is lying to you. In Chamber 18, GLaDOS outright says that you will be baked, and then there will be cake.
The experiment is nearing its conclusion. The Enrichment Center is required to remind you that you will be baked, and then there will be cake.
Of course, GLaDOS has had glitches in her dialogue before. This was established in the very beginning of the game, where she started speaking sped-up Spanish briefly.
For your own safety and the safety of others, please refrain from turn back.
So most players would most likely think that this was just another one of her glitches. But then no. Chamber 19 arrives, the last chamber. 19 might seem like kind of an odd number, but when you consider the final boss as its own chamber, the 20th chamber, then it does make a tiny bit of sense. Anyway, at the very end of Chamber 19, you're on a one-way moving platform through a narrow hallway over a pit of acid. At the end of the hallway, you see a picture of a slice of cake. Then, you turn the corner, and you're on a one-way trip into an incinerator! Miraculously, the walls of the incinerator are white walls, and there's a platform above the fire, also with white walls. So you're able to portal your way out of the incinerator. Once you're out, you're completely on your own. GLaDOS can't see you anymore, but she knows you're in the facility somewhere. She continues to talk to you, but that's literally all she can do. She sets up a few traps for you with the help of the turrets, which are the only thing that serve as any sort of quote-unquote enemy throughout this game, but they're easily avoided. You're unstoppable. Up to this point, you've been using the portal gun for navigation of pre-built puzzle chambers, with completely intended solutions and intended usages of the portal gun. Now that you've escaped, it's entirely up to you. There's no clear direction as to where you need to go. you need to use everything you've learned about the mechanics of the portals to make your way out of the facility. In the bowels of the facility, you encounter several rooms that should be filled with employees, but you still encounter nobody. Even Half-Life had you encounter surviving scientists after the initial calamity that you needed to escape from. Where is everybody? These hauntingly empty rooms and halls make it obvious that something happened here that wiped everyone out, and you're the only one left. As you continue through the empty facility, you eventually reach GLaDOS' chamber for the final boss battle. You see the massive robot hanging from the ceiling, and you finally know what's been talking to you this entire game. She taunts you about how you finally found her, then she tells you that she intends to kill you.
Well, you found me. Congratulations. Was it worth it? Because despite your violent behavior, the only thing you've managed to break so far is my heart. Maybe you could settle for that, and we'll just call it a day. I guess we both know that isn't going to happen.
Then, in a conveniently timed glitch, a piece of her falls off. You take it, then you drop it into a nearby incinerator to initiate the final boss. After the device gets destroyed, GLaDOS reveals that it was a personality core. Specifically, it was a morality core, meant to give her morals. She reveals in a plot twist that probably a lot of people already saw coming, that she was the one who killed everyone in the facility, using a deadly neurotoxin.
Good news. I figured out what that thing you just incinerated did. It was a morality core they installed after I flooded the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin to make me stop flooding the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin. So get comfortable while I warm up the neurotoxin emitters.
She activates the neurotoxin generators, and it's up to you to destroy her before you suffocate from the neurotoxin gas. You damage her by making a rocket turret accidentally hit her over and over again, with each hit making another core fall off of her. Once all 3 of the remaining cores get knocked off and incinerated, you win. GLaDOS implodes, and the facility gets destroyed. Overall, Portal is a really fun and intriguing puzzle game. Its subtle world building and storytelling really make it stand out among other puzzle games. Its fascinating sci-fi concept of the portals is so much fun to think about the implications and uses for them. I never even mentioned the fantastic soundtrack, which is mostly quiet and ambient yet slightly sinister or straight up silent during the testing chambers, then intense and adrenaline pumping during the escape sequences, further adding to the drastic shift in tone seen in the second half of the game. Ellen McLean does a fantastic job of bringing the subtly evil and slightly darkly humorous AI of GLaDOS to life, and this series just would not be the same without her. Overall, Portal is one of the greatest games that Valve has ever made. It's only $10 on the Steam store, and I think it's very worth it. I love turning the game on and going through the entire thing whenever I want to kill an hour. I just wish it were a bit longer, or that there were a bit more to do. And that's where Portal 2 comes in! In the meantime though, I feel like this video would be a lot easier to make if I were to split it into 2 between the 2 games. Tune in next time as I talk about why Portal 2 is one of my personal favorite games of all time.